Picture this. 30 days from today, you wake up and something feels different. You are not dragging yourself out of bed the way you have been. Your legs feel steadier when you stand. You notice partway through the morning that you are not reaching for coffee a second time just to function. You slept better last night, actually better, and there is a mood to your day that has been missing for a while. You did not take a new supplement, you did not join a gym, you did not change your diet dramatically. All you did was walk every day for 30 days. That is not a fantasy. That is what the research describes, and that is what we are going to walk through today. Pardon the pun. Now, here is the thing that stops most people before they even start. They think walking is not enough. It is too simple, too slow, too ordinary to produce real change. And yet the science behind this specific habit has been piling up for years, and what it keeps confirming is genuinely remarkable. Walking, done consistently, touches almost every system in your body. Your heart, your brain, your blood sugar, your immune system, your joints, your sleep, your mood, and it does it without the injury risk, the cost, or the intimidation of more intense forms of exercise. Stay with me through this entire video because at the end, I'm going to share the change that people consistently say surprised them most, the one they did not expect, the one they almost cannot explain, but that shows up again and again in people who commit to this challenge. It is not the change most people predict, and it might be the most important one of all. Welcome to Longevity Insight. If this is your first time here, this channel is built around one idea, giving you science-backed, practical information about aging well. Not trends, not supplements, not wishful thinking, just what the evidence actually shows, explained in a way that is useful in real life. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. We release new content every week, and this community keeps growing because the information genuinely helps. Subscribe, and let's get into this. Let's start with the big picture because the number that comes out of the most current research is one you should know. In July 2025, a landmark study was published in The Lancet Public Health, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. Researchers at the University of Sydney led a systematic review and meta-analysis that analyzed data from 57 studies conducted in more than 10 countries, covering data from over 160,000 adults. They wanted to answer a simple but massive question. How much does daily step count actually change your health outcomes? What they found is extraordinary. Compared to walking around 2,000 steps a day, which represents a fairly sedentary lifestyle, walking 7,000 steps a day was associated with a 47% lower risk of early death from any cause. That is nearly half. The same comparison showed a 38% lower risk of developing dementia, a 25% lower risk of cardiovascular disease, a 22% lower risk of depressive symptoms, a 28% lower risk of falls, and a 14% lower risk of type 2 diabetes. 7,000 steps. For most people, that is somewhere between a 30 and 45-minute walk at a moderate pace. Not a marathon, not a boot camp, a daily walk. And here is the part that further resets the bar in the right direction. Even moving from 2,000 steps to 4,000 steps per day produced measurable improvements compared to staying fully sedentary. You do not have to go from 0 to an hour overnight. You just have to move more than you currently are consistently every day. The research supports a progressive, sustainable approach far more than it supports heroic bursts of effort followed by days of rest. With that context established, let's look at what actually happens inside your body when you commit to daily walking for 30 days, week by week, system by system. The first thing you are likely to notice happens faster than most people expect, and it shows up during the very first week. Within the first 4 to 7 days of consistent walking, most people report a noticeable improvement in their energy levels. This is not a vague or wishful observation. It is grounded in physiology. Walking increases oxygen flow throughout the body, raises levels of epinephrine and norepinephrine hormones that support alertness and vitality, and begins to reduce the background cortisol levels that chronically tired people often carry. Your cells start to receive better oxygen delivery. Your cardiovascular system begins working more efficiently. And for a body that has been mostly sedentary, Even mild, regular exercise quickly shifts the metabolic state toward one that generates more usable energy rather than less. There was also something else happening in the first week that most people do not connect to exercise at all. Their sleep starts to change. Research consistently shows that moderate physical activity, including walking, improves sleep quality in measurable ways. It increases melatonin production, the hormone that regulates your sleep-wake cycle. It helps regulate body temperature in a way that naturally facilitates easier sleep onset 30 to 90 minutes after exercise. And it reduces the psychological arousal and cortisol load that keeps many people lying awake or waking in the middle of the night. Studies show that adults who exercise for at least 30 minutes a day sleep an average of 15 minutes longer per night than those who do not. And more importantly, the quality of that sleep improves, not just the length. If you are walking first thing in the morning and getting outdoor light at the same time, you are reinforcing your circadian rhythm in a way that compounds the sleep benefit even further. Within the first week, many people notice they are falling asleep more easily, waking up feeling less unrested, and carrying less of that groggy fog into the morning. This is not coincidence. This is what the research describes. By the time the second week arrives, the changes become more noticeable in a different direction, and this is where the physical momentum starts to build in a way that feels genuinely different. Stamina begins to improve. The walk that felt like effort in week 1 starts to feel more natural in week 2. Your body's adapting, your cardiovascular system is becoming more efficient, your leg muscles are recovering faster, and your joint lubrication is improving because movement drives synovial fluid through cartilage in a way that prolonged sitting does not. For people dealing with stiff or achy joints, many report that by week 2, the morning stiffness that used to take an hour to shake off begins to ease more quickly. The Arthritis Foundation has long supported walking as one of the most beneficial activities for joint health. It lubricates the joints and improves cartilage nutrition, and the research backs this up clearly. Blood pressure also begins to shift during the second week in people who walk consistently. A 2024 British Journal of Sports Medicine study found that walking more than 2,200 steps a day, just over a mile, was already associated with a lower risk of heart disease and death, and the cardiovascular adaptations begin early. The heart muscle itself becomes slightly more efficient with each week of regular exercise. Resting heart rate often drops by a few beats per minute as the heart gets stronger and pumps more blood per stroke. And something quieter but equally important is happening at the cellular level. Regular walking begins to reduce chronic, low-grade inflammation, the background inflammatory state that drives so many of the diseases and symptoms associated with aging. Research from multiple studies confirms that consistent, moderate exercise reduces inflammatory markers, including creatine protein and interleukin-6 in the blood. This is the kind of change you cannot feel directly, but it is one of the most significant things that regular movement does for long-term health, and it begins during the first 2 weeks of consistent activity. The third week is where people typically cross a threshold they did not anticipate, and it has to do with something that is harder to measure than blood pressure or sleep, but may be the most powerful change of all, the way you feel about yourself and your day. By week 3, walking is no longer an effort. It is a habit. The body has adapted enough that the physical discomfort of starting is largely gone. The mood benefits that have been accumulating walking consistently increases serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins, the brain's natural mood-supporting chemicals, have reached a level that people can actually feel in their daily outlook. A 2021 study found that moderate and vigorous walking can help boost mental health among people over 65. And the mental health benefits in the research are not subtle. The Lancet meta-analysis from 2025 found a 22% lower risk of depressive symptoms associated with 7,000 daily steps. That is a clinically meaningful number, not a marginal one. The reason for this goes beyond simple neurotransmitter activity. Walking, when done consistently and outdoors, connects the person to a kind of deliberate, forward-moving rhythm that has a calming, regulating effect on the nervous system. Research has documented that regular walking reduces cortisol over time, not just in the moment, but as a chronic adaptation. For people who have been living with a persistently elevated stress background, and many people after retirement do, even without obvious sources of acute stress, this cortisol reduction changes the entire texture of their days. Things feel less effortful. Small irritations that used to land heavily pass more easily. There is more ease. This is also the week where blood sugar regulation improvements become noticeable for people tracking it. Light walking after meals has been consistently shown in research to reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes more effectively than sitting or even standing. The muscles, when engaged by walking, act as a glucose sink. They pull blood sugar out of circulation to use as fuel, which flattens the glycemic curve after eating and reduces the insulin demand on the pancreas. For the nearly 1 in 3 American adults who have prediabetes, many of whom do not know it, this mechanism alone makes daily walking one of the most powerful and accessible interventions available. By the end of week 4, the full picture comes into focus, and it tends to surprise people because it adds up to more than they expected. The cardiovascular system is meaningfully more efficient. Blood pressure in many people who started with elevated readings has declined. Resting heart rate has decreased. The heart is working better. Harvard research confirms that walking for just 2.5 hours per week, about 21 minutes daily, can cut heart disease risk by 30%. By 30 days of daily walking, most people are well exceeding that threshold. The muscles have adapted. Not dramatically, 30 days of walking will not produce visible muscle development the way resistance training does, but muscle endurance has improved. The legs are stronger, the core is more engaged during movement, and the body is simply more accustomed to sustained activity. For older adults, this adaptation begins to address the muscle function decline that is a primary driver of fall risk, reduced mobility, and loss of independence. Research supports walking as protective against sarcopenia when paired with adequate protein. Not a complete solution, but a meaningful contribution. Brain function has improved in measurable ways. A review from the University of Maryland found that walking 30 minutes 4 days a week improved memory in people with mild cognitive impairment. Harvard research, published in 2025, confirmed that regular walking boosts cognitive function and enhances cellular repair mechanisms in the brain. The Lancet meta-analysis tied 7,000 daily steps to a 38% lower risk of dementia compared to a sedentary baseline. By the end of 30 days of daily walking, the neurological benefits are not hypothetical. They are actively accumulating. And the immune system is stronger. Regular exercise, including walking, has been shown to lower the chance of developing colds, flu, and other illnesses. Walking interventions have demonstrated immunomodulatory benefits, meaning they regulate the immune system in a way that reduces both susceptibility to infection and the overactivation that drives chronic inflammation. For older adults whose immune systems are already navigating age-related changes, this effect is particularly meaningful. Now let's talk about something practical, because understanding the benefits is only valuable if you actually go out and walk. The first practical truth is that consistency matters more than intensity. A major review of 57 studies published in The Lancet concluded that consistency and duration matter more than total step count in terms of long-term health outcomes. A moderate, sustainable daily walk is worth far more than occasional long, punishing workouts separated by days of inactivity. The adaptations, cardiovascular, muscular, metabolic, neurological, build through repetition. You cannot store them up. You earn them daily. The second practical truth is that you do not need to walk fast to get the core benefits. A brisk pace, roughly 100 to 130 steps per minute, or about 20 to 30 minutes per mile, maximizes cardiovascular benefit. But even a slower, more comfortable pace provides substantial returns for joint health, blood sugar, mood, sleep, and general circulation. If you are just starting out, start at a pace that feels comfortable and sustainable. You can gradually increase pace and duration as the weeks go on and your body adapts. The goal in the first 30 days is consistency above all else. The third practical truth is that walking in longer, uninterrupted bouts appears to deliver more cardiovascular benefit than the same steps spread across short fragments. Research published in the Annals of Internal Medicine in late 2025 found that walking in intervals of 10 to 15 minutes or longer was associated with meaningfully lower cardiovascular disease risk than accumulating the same steps in brief, scattered amounts throughout the day. That does not mean short walks have no value. They clearly do. But if your goal is heart health, a single 30-minute walk is more powerful than 6 5-minute walks. A few things make daily walking more sustainable over 30 days and beyond. Walking at the same time each day, whether that is first thing in the morning, after lunch, or after dinner, builds the habit into the structure of your day so that the decision to walk does not have to be remade each morning. Attaching the walk to something you already enjoy, a podcast, an audiobook, music, a phone call with a friend, removes the psychological friction. Walking with someone else, even occasionally, adds a social element that the research shows improves adherence and adds its own health benefits. And keeping comfortable shoes by the door reduces the barrier to starting. Now, the unexpected change, the one I mentioned at the beginning. The one that people consistently report as the biggest surprise of the 30-day walking challenge. It is not better sleep, though that happens. It is not more energy, though that happens too. It is not lower blood pressure or improved blood sugar, though both of those often change as well. The change that surprises people most is how different their thinking feels. By the end of 30 days of daily walking, most people report a mental clarity and focus that they had not anticipated. Not a dramatic transformation, more like a fog lifting. Decisions that felt hard feel clearer. Problems that felt stuck begin to move. There was a sense of cognitive availability, of being more present and engaged with the day that many people had not experienced in years and did not expect from a walking habit. The science behind this is real and increasingly well understood. Regular walking increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and working memory. It stimulates the release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that researchers sometimes describe as fertilizer for the brain because it supports the growth and maintenance of neurons and the connections between them. It reduces the cortisol load that suppresses prefrontal function and narrows thinking, and it improves the quality of sleep, which is when the brain consolidates memory and clears metabolic waste products. Walking also does something that is hard to quantify but consistently reported. It creates thinking time. The rhythmic, forward-moving quality of a walk, especially an outdoor one, is one of the few activities that allows the mind to settle into a kind of open, generative attention that rarely happens while staring at a screen or sitting in a chair. Many people find that their best ideas come on walks, that problems they have been unable to solve at a desk resolve themselves during a 30-minute morning walk. Steve Jobs famously preferred walking meetings. Philosophers from Aristotle to Kant were devoted walkers who credited the habit with sharpening their thinking. The science now supports what they observed intuitively. This is the change that tends to arrive quietly and then becomes the thing people most want to protect. They adjust their schedule to make sure the walk happens. They become reluctant to miss it on bad weather days. They start telling people about it, and they realize somewhere in the fourth week that what began as a 30-day challenge has become something they do not want to stop. Here is everything in one place. In the first week, your energy improves, your sleep quality begins to shift, and your body starts the cellular process of reducing chronic inflammation. In the second week, stamina builds, joints feel better, blood pressure begins to adapt, and blood sugar regulation improves. By the third week, mood lifts in a way that is hard to miss. The stress hormone load begins to lower chronically, and the walk becomes a habit rather than a chore. By the end of 30 days, your cardiovascular system is more efficient, your brain is functioning better, your immune system is stronger, your risk of multiple serious conditions has measurably declined, and you are sleeping better and thinking more clearly than you were a month ago. All of that from a daily walk. The research behind this is not soft or preliminary. A landmark 2025 Lancet Public Health meta-analysis covering 57 studies and over 160,000 adults confirm that 7,000 daily steps is associated with a 47% lower risk of early death, a 38% lower risk of dementia, a 25% lower risk of cardiovascular disease, and a 22% lower risk of depression, all compared to a sedentary baseline. These are not marginal numbers. They're the kind of numbers that should change how you think about your day. The best time to start this challenge was a year ago. The second best time is today. This is the kind of practical, evidence-based content that Longevity Insight is built to deliver. If this video gave you something useful, a reason to lace up tomorrow morning, a number to hold on to, a better understanding of what your body is capable of, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me, are you going to take the 30-day walking challenge? Or if you already walk regularly, what change surprised you most when you started? I read every comment on this channel, and what you share helps shape the content we make next. If you found this helpful, share it with someone you care about. A friend who has been meaning to get more active, a brother who complains about his energy levels, someone who could use a realistic, achievable starting point. You sharing this might be exactly what they needed to hear today. And if you are not yet subscribed to Longevity Insight, this is your moment. Hit subscribe and join us every week for content that takes healthy aging seriously, because getting older does not mean slowing down. It means moving smarter.